The coffee maker in our kitchen started its loud, sputtering grind at exactly 5:15 in the morning. Alyssa had set the auto brew the night before, and the heavy smell of dark roast was already filling the lower level of the house. For over 30 years of my corporate sales career, that specific sound and that smell were my starting pistol. I would walk downstairs in the dark, pour a massive cup of black coffee, and immediately flood my system with caffeine just to feel human enough to handle my day. I thought I was simply being disciplined and productive. But what I did not realize until my late 50s, when my physical drive had completely evaporated and my physical connection with my wife had turned into a quiet, awkward memory, was that my sacred morning ritual was actually acting as a biological wrecking ball. I was chemically destroying my own infrastructure before the sun even came up. If you are watching this right now, and the very first thing you do when your feet hit the floor is walk to the kitchen to artificially force your brain awake, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I know exactly how essential that morning routine feels when you are running a business, managing a family, and dealing with the exhaustion of getting older. I am going to explain exactly why that specific habit is shutting down your physical hardware, and I will share the exact morning drink protocol I replaced it with. I promise you, what your body actually requires in the morning to maintain an erection is completely different from what you are currently giving it. I sat at my kitchen island one Saturday morning, drinking my third cup of coffee, feeling completely wired but physically hollow. I had been dealing with severe impotence for over a year, and I had been blaming my age, my stress, and my testosterone levels. But when I finally started researching the actual electrical and hydraulic mechanics of the human body, I realized I was committing biological sabotage. The male erection is not just a vascular event. It is a hydraulic action that must be triggered by a flawless electrical signal from the brain. When you sleep for 7 or 8 hours, your body respires and sweats. You lose a massive amount of physical fluid. You wake up in a state of severe cellular dehydration. Your blood is thick, and more importantly, your internal fluid lacks the conductive minerals required to pass an electrical spark down your nervous system. When you take a dehydrated, electrically dead machine and immediately pour highly acidic diuretic coffee into the fuel tank, you trigger a massive biological panic. Caffeine forces your adrenal glands to dump cortisol and adrenaline into your bloodstream. Adrenaline is a powerful vasoconstrictor. It literally slams your blood vessels shut to push blood toward your vital organs. I was starting every single day by chemically shrinking my vascular system, draining the remaining conductive fluid from my cells, and locking my body into a state of high-stress survival. You cannot run a high-voltage electrical current through dry sand, and you cannot expect your hydraulic valves to open when they have been chemically clamped shut by cortisol for 14 hours a day. The first concrete thing I had to change was completely overhauling how I primed my internal pump in the morning. Before a single drop of coffee touches my lips, I now prepare a very specific mechanical hydration drink. It is not a magic potion, it is a biological necessity. I take 32 ounces of room temperature water, squeeze half a fresh lemon into it, and add a heavy visible pinch of high quality, unrefined sea salt. The sea salt is the absolute critical component here. It provides the heavy, raw electrolytes and minerals that your nervous system desperately needs to actually conduct electricity. When you drink that immediately upon waking, you are doing two things. You are flushing the thick, sluggish blood from the night before, restoring the hydraulic volume to your system. And you are providing the conductive fluid required for the brain to actually send a clear, strong signal to your pelvic floor. Within a week of starting this exact flush, the heavy brain fog I used to experience in the morning completely disappeared. My body stopped feeling like a dry, stiff machine because I was finally giving the electrical wiring the conductive fluid it needed to operate. The second massive shift was learning how to delay the ignition switch. I did not give up coffee completely because I am a realist, but I forced myself to delay my caffeine intake until at least 90 minutes after I woke up. When you wake up naturally, your body produces its own cortisol spike to pull you out of sleep. If you drink coffee during that natural spike, you overdrive the system and burn out your adrenal glands. By waiting 90 minutes, you allow your natural cortisol to peak and drop smoothly. Then, you can introduce the caffeine without triggering a massive system-wide vascular lockdown. It is exactly like letting a heavy diesel engine idle and warm up naturally for a few minutes instead of spraying highly volatile starting fluid directly into the carburetor the second you turn the key. Taking the chemical panic out of my morning routine allowed my parasympathetic nervous system, the circuit that controls natural arousal and blood flow, to finally exist without being constantly overpowered by stress hormones. The third change involved applying physical friction to force the new fluid through the system. After I drink the saltwater flush, I do not sit down and look at my phone. I go outside into the natural light and I walk briskly for 15 minutes. The human lymphatic system, which clears out cellular waste and manages your immune and hormonal health, does not have a pump. It relies entirely on the physical contraction of your muscles to push the fluid through the pipes. By flooding the system with high-quality, mineral-dense water and immediately forcing the body to move, I act as the manual pump. I push the thick, stagnant sludge out of my deep tissues and replace it with clean, conductive fluid. The physical lethargy I used to carry around all day vanished because my internal pipelines were finally clean. If the mechanical logic of restoring your electrical conductivity and delaying your chemical stress makes sense to you, or if you are tired of feeling wired but physically exhausted every single day, hit the like button right now. It is incredibly important that we get this specific biological truth in front of other men who are currently destroying their vascular health with their morning routines. We have to share the actual mechanics of how to rebuild the machine. Getting the hydraulic volume right, restoring the electrical spark, and delaying the chemical adrenaline completely changed my baseline vitality. But I am an absolute realist about the long-term damage caused by decades of adrenal abuse. When you spend 30 years forcing your blood vessels to constrict with morning adrenaline, the internal Teflon lining becomes incredibly stiff, and the cells responsible for producing testosterone often go dormant because they have been starved of proper signaling for so long. I realized that to fully repair the infrastructure, I needed highly specific internal reinforcement. I refused to use synthetic pharmacy options that just create more artificial chemical spikes. I went looking for a natural protocol that directly supported my hormonal factory floor and my vascular pathways. The daily formulation I use relies heavily on forskolin. This compound acts as a direct ignition switch for your endocrine system. It penetrates the cellular walls and activates the specific enzymes responsible for natural testosterone production, forcing the dormant factory to wake back up and start manufacturing its own supply. The protocol also uses epimedium. This works to support the natural nitric oxide pathways, allowing the blood vessels to regain their elasticity and open up smoothly when the electrical signal arrives, without the harsh, synthetic adrenaline dump of a prescription pill. I never tell another man what he should add to his routine, but if you want to look at the exact formulation I rely on to wake up my production lines and keep my vascular pathways responsive, I put a link in the pinned comment right below this video. You can also simply scan the QR code you see on your screen right now. I spent a long time digging through the clinical mechanics to find a clean, logical protocol that I actually trust. Because here is the deepest truth about aging and physical intimacy. Your sex life does not just randomly die because you cross the 60-year mark. It dies because your daily comfortable habits slowly suffocate your internal machinery. When you wake up dehydrated and instantly flood your body with stress chemicals, you are teaching your nervous system that you are in a state of constant survival. The human body will never prioritize physical intimacy when it thinks it is dying of thirst and running from a threat. When I replaced my morning panic with a quiet, mechanical hydration protocol, I did not just change my energy levels. I changed the biological signal I was sending to my own body. Alyssa noticed the shift before I even had to say a word about it. When a man restores his internal electrical conductivity and takes his foot off the adrenaline pedal, his entire physical presence changes. He stops acting like a frantic, exhausted worker and returns to being a grounded, highly capable man. When the hardware finally had the fluid and the spark it needed to operate, the physical connection we used to have in our 20s naturally reestablished itself. Many men quietly accept a dead bedroom because they refuse to look at the seemingly harmless routines that are actually destroying their hardware. They blame their age instead of looking at their coffee cup. You do not have to accept a malfunctioning system. You own the machine, and you have the absolute authority to change the fuel you put in the tank. Tell me in the comments, Did you ever consider that your sacred morning coffee routine might be the exact chemical trigger that is shutting down your physical drive? I read every single comment, and I know exactly how hard it is to admit that our favorite habits are often the things hurting us the most. Do not spend another morning chemically shrinking your vascular system before you even start your day. The longer you let dehydration and adrenaline dictate your biology, the harder it is to wake the electrical signals back up. Start mixing the salt in the water and delay the caffeine tomorrow morning. And if you want to give your internal engine the specific cellular support it needs to activate your hormone production and keep the pipes flexible, look at the protocol I use. The link is right there in the pinned comment below, and the QR code is on your screen. Take a serious look at the biological mechanisms of the ingredients. Decide for yourself if the logic makes sense for the exact physical independence you are trying to reclaim right now. I am Cole Harrison. Keep doing the work.